Hello and welcome everyone to an exciting night at the Beacon of Light podcast this evening. Tonight we have an amazing guest and his name is John Callas, and we are so excited to have him here. He's going to be sharing a story that I think has a lot of power, especially for the month of May, where we really talk about mental health and that awareness of how we can really focus in on what we want to bring forward in this life. But before we start talking to him, let's jump into this.
I'm April Tribe Juke. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. I believe we are all made with light, and light is hope. This podcast brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now.
And we are back. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to have you here this evening. And like I said, we have Mr. John Callas. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a 40-year veteran filmmaker, writer, director, producer in the film business. I've done 8 award-winning productions, including an Emmy nomination. And I'm also a mental health expert, trying to spread the message of hope to people.
Wow. And spreading that message of hope to people is so very, very important. We know we've all experienced some levels of challenge within the last few years. And if you had never experienced trauma, I know the year 2020 was kind of that opener. Hey, welcome. Here's an opportunity for trauma. And I don't mean to make that light, but it's really been an interesting experience for so many people. So, John, your experience with mental health really comes down to your own experiences. And you have a book here, which we want to show here is called When the Rain Stops. So really interesting title. Maybe we could start there about how you came up with that title.
Well, it's an interesting question because I was struggling with the title and I kept thinking there has to be a theme to the story. And because it was a theme for me about my heart and my emotions, I started thinking, what was the undertone to it? And I thought it was really cloudy in there. It was really painful. And then I thought, well, it's raining. It's raining in my heart. And then I heard it say, when the rain stops, I'll be better. And I thought, oh, that's the title, When the Rain Stops. And it seems to encapsulate the whole concept.
Wonderful set. The concept of when a heart is raining, you can really feel a visual of that and understanding what pain can happen with so many people. And I think, well, would you agree with this, or what would you like to discuss about when other people have experiences and trauma, mental health challenges within their life? Are they really open in sharing or not?
That's really up to the individual. I mean, it's a very difficult thing sometimes when you have a mental health issue to be willing to share it, because it's so scary to begin with and it's so personalized, and you don't want to feel anything less than you already are. And there's always the fear of a trigger causing an episodic journey back into another depressive state. There's really no one shoe fits all. So in mental health, you have to kind of see what's comfortable for you. And if you seek help, that's your first step. If you know you want help, that's a good first step. If you're willing to talk about it, yet another good step. Unfortunately, in our society, and it's getting better now, men have been trapped in that men don't cry, we're supposed to be tough and all that, but it's starting to open up so that we can express that we also have feelings that are very painful and have caused scars and traumas in our lives as well.
Yes, I really think that focus of the man have a sense of strength, and if they have challenges or pain, if they express it, that perspective of, oh, we must have a weakness here, and they can't be weak because we're depending on them to be strong, or that concept of provider and protector. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not diminished or minimized if someone's having pain. So in your life, This is a book, your memoir, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you have this experience with this, and that is something that's really, really interesting to have. Looking at just some of our comments here, I'm going to throw a question that's come up, and we're going to read this and see if you have any answers for it. Not very many people are even aware of their mental issues. Do you find that that is true?
Not necessarily. Unless you're a really clinically deranged mental issue person, I think we all know if we're having a bad day or if we're in a depression state. I also think that if it's repetitive, you'll know that you need help. For example, if you get up in the morning and you feel depressed, and that is the theme day after day after day, as opposed to you got up one day you felt bad, but the next day you felt okay, then you probably had a bad day and maybe have some mental health issues. The interesting thing is that the CDC wrote a report that every adult person in America will have at least one major depressive episode in their lifetime. So I think we all can benefit from understanding mental health and learning how to deal with it. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. I think that's a really good perspective to realize this challenge is going to impact all. So we're not exempt from it. And I think the question becomes, if your heart is raining because of pain or trauma, which leads to depression, how can we help to lessen that rain and eventually make it stop? Does it, like, what is the timing with that? Like, how does that all work?
I think the first step is to recognize that you're willing to talk. Again, especially for men, but just generically, if you're willing to talk, you'll start to uncover very quickly that you have an issue that perhaps you don't have answers, which is part of why I started seeking therapy when I finally got a little older. I worked through as much as I possibly could as a human being, but I came to the point where I had more questions than answers, and I had no way to resolve those. So I had to seek help. And help is a good thing because it gives you a perspective that you may not have yourself. And it may open up a truth that you didn't realize that will help you in your recovery.
Oh, I love that idea of, it seems like an outside perspective can find that truth, that strength. Maybe you have gifts that you didn't even realize. And as they share them back with you through questions, you start to find some of those answers.
Exactly.
That is really, really a powerful understanding to know this concept of how we have the pain and holding it in from experiences. I think what was something really brave that you did, and we shared a little bit prior to coming up here live tonight. John shared the moment when he was placed on a train to go to military school when he was 12. And his experience was something very true and real for him. And as he got older, he was able to ask his mom's perspective. Is that kind of how I was understanding it? And as your
Yes.
mom gave her perspective, what did that do for your understanding of the same experience?
What it made me do is it made me start going back and looking at every incident that caused me trauma or I caused myself trauma. And I started wondering if my perception of the truth was real or was there an alternative perception? The example you brought up, when I was put on the train, as the train pulled out and my mother got smaller and smaller, she turned away and walked away. And here I am, 12 years old, scared out of my mind, heading to a place I didn't want to go to. And it wasn't until I was an adult when she and I finally made amends and she talked to me about that day. And she said, John, I didn't abandon you. Wasn't turning away from you because I didn't love you. I turned away because I was crying my eyes out that I was putting my little baby on a train and I didn't have any help and I couldn't help you because you were so out of control because of the death of your father. And that's what happened. And I realized at that moment that all of the truth of me hating my mother because she put me on the train and thinking that she didn't love me was all a misconception. and it wasn't the reality. And the reality was she did it because she loved me. And that was a tough thing for me to understand.
Wow. That's to go through your life for many years, and until you have that clarifying conversation, your story is the reality, because that is how you felt. And until you could make amends and come to a point where you could have a conversation like that, when you heard that perspective from her, did you accept it? Did you have to think about things for a minute? Did you grab your pen and like, I gotta write this out? Something is different here. Like, how did you take that?
I took it as an honest moment between us, and I just burst out crying, and we both hugged because I'd always wanted to have the love of my mother, and I never felt I had it. And after we finally started opening up to each other and talking, I realized how strong and powerful of a woman this was, and all she wanted was something good for me. Because had she let me go, I I would have gone down a criminal route. Who knows what? I would have gotten in so much trouble. And she saw that, and so did my stepdad. And they gave me a gift of life that I hated them for a long time, until I realized the sacrifice they did so that I could live a better life.
Wow. Sometimes we just don't know until we have the conversation. And I'm wondering if this is my own wonderings right at the moment, where we have incredible technology, opportunities to have more potential conversations than ever before. We didn't have to wait months and years for mail. We can pick up a phone, we can connect, we can instantly chat. What is our breakdown right now of this communication? It seems like with all these opportunities, we would have more clarity, but it seems like we have more scarcity. It's really interesting. I don't know if you want to respond to that. Maybe that's just my own mind thinking there for a minute.
No, I think what you said is very spot on. And look, I believe in technology and evolution, and things that are going to change. But we are living in a very strong digital world. And what we're missing is the human contact, the one on one. Like, yes, Zooms are good. Yes, the phone's good. Yes, FaceTime's good. But if you sit in front of a person, you turn the phones off, you put them away, and you have a conversation, you've now connected on a human level. And it's not that block that's very safe. Because right now, if either one of us wanted, we could close our computer and we're out of there. We don't have to deal with it anymore. Or we can hang up the cell phone or unfriend somebody on Facebook. So the one-on-one human contact is what we need to get back to, so that we can be humans again to each other. Now, I don't for a minute delusion myself thinking technology is going to go away. But I think what we have to do is get a grip on how to use the technology to our advantage, not having it control us.
Oh, powerfully said. I hope people heard that. That's very clear. And I think it's really interesting where you work with a group of people that are about pictures, movies, directing. You're going to share, you're going to share a story, right? In essence, you are sharing a story. And this concept of bringing that story to someone's heart, touching, understanding, making them laugh, making them cry, it's very, very powerful. And hoping that the stories that can open that way maybe can start some of those one-to-one conversations.
Yes.
That's really powerful work. Really powerful. So there's a question that's popped up here, and it says, how does Hollywood deal with mental issues?
Fortunately, Hollywood is looking at that very carefully. It looks at the stress that we're all under. I know that in the Directors Guild of America, there's so much stress that our life expectancy is a lot shorter than the average. And it's because of the pressure we put ourselves under, the fact that we're always on the move. We're not really eating that well. And when you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get home at 10 and got to be back on the set at 5 o'clock, your mental health starts deteriorating a little bit. So what we try to do is bring some of the home to us. Like, we have craft service, a really nice breakfast. You have a nice lunch. You get a little break here and there. And we try to schedule it so that the mental health issue doesn't get so bad that somebody loses it and then nobody's going to be helpful to you. I think because of the diversity in the entertainment industry and the openness that we have, I think we're also very open and aware that there are mental issues that need to be addressed. And every guild that I know now is offering assistance in that area, and seminars and ways of dealing with it while you're at work.
That's really, really important to see that they can understand that we've had a challenge, and that we as humanity, we do need to connect together. We do need to understand. We do need to have some comforts. There are demands upon us in a variety of everything. I know within my own classroom, I can't control what happens when the students come or where they come from, but as they come into my classroom, I can definitely offer them a safe space, a place of learning, and some challenge that helps them to really grow. And that is a place where I want them to know that relational connection to the one-to-one, I feel really blessed every day to have that opportunity, because it is not so grand and big where I'm going to miss. We can keep that really intimate. And in fact, today we kind of did a little precursor. I will have 5 seniors graduating, and just kind of as a class, they complimented each other and shared some fun stories, and we could see that connectiveness. And there were some tears, but it was a sense of just friendship that was really, really amazing. And those things I would never trade. Never. It's just so fun to see. And I hope that they can glean from that and remember, whatever happens at home or in their future lives, in one place, they know that they were loved, they were challenged, right? We want to see these grow, the growth. And that is just something that they can always draw back from. And I hope they will. So yeah, pretty powerful. Are you ready for some more questions? It looks like we have a few more popping up.
Fire away.
Okay. So it says, how much does Hollywood cause many people depression? Should they be responsible on this participation in the mental issues?
That's a complicated question that I think I would probably defer to a qualified mental health practitioner. Now, personally speaking, I don't think anyone causes you the mental health issue. I think we start misunderstanding, like we were talking before, about what the truth is and your perception. And if you don't take the opportunity to deal with it right then and there or relatively soon, then that starts to fester and it becomes a bigger problem than you really have. I know in my recovery part, I used to start thinking, well, this guy did this, and okay, so I'm going to go talk to him. But if he says this, I'm going to do this. And if he says this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say this. I'm going to do. I get myself so wired up. He just comes up and says hi, and I start going, "What do you mean hi? What do you mean hi?" So you just go after somebody for no reason. So I think it's very careful to monitor yourself that way. Hollywood can't take responsibility for everything and every issue and every person's mental health. What we can do is offer the tools to help you guide through those things and offer the help out there.
I love that. I think that's a great thing, because the responsibility truly is upon ourselves. The event, the trauma, the challenge, the natural disaster, those things are out of our control. What is in our control is our response, our choice to find healing, our choice to move forward, or our choice to stay within the cycle of being the victim or the consummate survivor. And that's, these things are really interesting. And I think the more stories we can get out there to show different perspectives, it might be just enough to think, okay, I know I can go forward. That's a main reason that so many of us will write our memoir, thinking, I know that others probably have suffered something similar, and how I found my way through. I think I need to share that with other people. It might give one person out there the change that they needed, maybe a few more. And that idea of helping and supporting someone through the word, through books, through that idea of a story is really powerful. So I'm going to ask you that question as why did you write your own story?
Well, it started out with me going to a therapist because, as I mentioned, I had more questions than answers. So I went to a therapist, and he suggested, look, why don't you write a couple pages about what you're feeling and what you're going through and come back and we'll talk. I walked into his office the next week and he burst out crying. And he just said, I don't know how you got through life. I don't understand it. And so I started thinking about it and I said, well, maybe I should do some more writing. And I did what's called the artist way, which is supposed to be 3 pages a day for 12 weeks. Well, 12 months later, I was still writing. And you're supposed to go back and look at it. But by that time, I was so invested in writing, I thought, this feels good to be able to finally express some of the deep feelings I'm having that I don't understand. So I said, I'm going to take the journey. I'm going to rip off the scab and I'm going to start at the beginning of where it all started, which was when my dad died when I was 3. And I'm going to just write it out. And as I was writing, I finally got like a rough draft out and I gave it to my wife and my editor. And I had named the character Jim, and they both were screaming at me. They said, no, this will not be a believable story unless you say who it is, this is your story. This is the truth of what happened. And you can service so many more people and empower them by telling them it's your true story. So I said, okay. And then about the middle of the night, I thought, how am I going to make it so my mother doesn't come off as the evil person in this story? Until later in the book, but by that time they're going to hate her as much as I did growing up. And I thought, okay, so what you need to do is have the story told as you were growing and going through all of your traumas and depressions, but have a little gray box of the adult looking back and seeing what the truth was of the situation that you thought you knew the truth, but wasn't, like my mother on the train kind of thing. And so the book has those 2 voices. And I started writing it to show other people to not be afraid to talk about their experience, their trauma, their anxiety that they were having. A gentleman on Facebook did a review of the book. And a while later, his wife wrote me an email saying, after he and I read your book, he went over to the phone, picked it up and called his mother, who he hadn't spoken to in 10 years. And she's now back in his life. And I got to be honest, I was crying when I read it because I thought, wow, if the book is powerful enough to do that for somebody, then I know I did what I set out to do. And if it continues to help people, I'm going to be very proud of myself.
That is beautifully said. There are those moments of change that happen when someone else reads the story that they can connect in. It opens up that way for them to start to deal and self-reflect on, do I want to stay here or do I want to move forward? And mending relationships, it's all going to end one day.
Yep.
And you want to do your best to mend it. And there are hard things. I can't even imagine some of the challenges and the mending that has to happen, or that's the possibility of happening. But they are there. Very, very true. So it looks like, oh, look at that. It's John Michael. Many of his questions have been the ones popping up this evening. Thank you. So I think there's something really, really interesting. I'm going to share, if I can look at one of these here. It says, let's see. Okay. This is maybe a good question. How is Hollywood dealing with the gun issues and violence to sell films to help people with their mental issues?
Well, unfortunately, Hollywood has glamorized mental health through guns and violence. It's about the protagonist always finding the solution by using a gun. And what we have to do is start looking at what the truth is. I mean, as kids, we grow up looking at Tom and Jerry, Yosemite Sam, and all these cartoons that have a lot of violence, and kids start thinking that it's fairly normalized. And that's not a good model for kids to look at. So I think what we have to do is start understanding what they're watching when they get a little older, like Todd.0 shows a lot of really stupid stunts and quite often winds up in injury. Video games, for example, will show you killing people all the time with a gun. And if you get killed, you can pop up because you have multiple lives and go on with the mission. So I think it's important for us to have conversations with kids and saying, look, that's make believe. It does not happen in real life. Or they go to the movies and they watch somebody stick their tongue on a cold pole. Why would you do that in the first place? But okay, there you go. You've got a tongue stuck on a pole. And you have to explain to them that that reality doesn't exist. That's only fantasy stuff. Now, once you have that conversation, then you have to listen and gauge how they took it all in and where they're at with it.
Great perspectives there. I think conversation is really what this comes back to. Having the strength and the bravery to have these conversations, to realize, no, this is fake. This is this make believe, and you don't have the 9 lives. You don't have all of these missions. Excuse me, not missions, but the life to keep the mission going. We don't have that.
No.
You will get hurt. These
You'll
things
die. When you're dead, you're
challenge.
dead. You know, it's
That's
the
it.
thing.
Very true. Yes, I think that's something well stated. So thank you for sharing all that. So let's take a look again at his book, When the Rain Stops. Can I ask the question, has the rain stopped for you?
It did. It finally did. I sat on the beach, which is in the book, and I wrote a song, basically a poem, because it just felt like I got complete. That's not to say I don't have depressive episodes. It's not to say I don't have my turn in the barrel occasionally. But what I've learned to do is to define, am I having a lousy day or am I having a depressive episode? And either one, I'll try to watch a funny movie. I'll take a walk. I'll go for a bike ride. I'll do something to distract myself. Then I'll sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil and write down everything I can think that's bothering me. Then I let that sit for a little bit, and I go back and I take it apart one thing at a time. And I try to identify how much energy do I really want to put into that item? Is it that important? Is it something that I can let go? Is it something I need to resolve? Is there somebody I need to talk to about that? And once you have tools like that, you can start to uncover, discover, and recover from any episode that you might have.
Well stated. Thank you for that. So it is possible. The rain can stop, and we can have our days. And with the right tools, we can examine those days to know, is this an episode? Is this going to be months? Is this just a bad day? Super helpful on that perspective, because we then can maybe quiet some of those voices within our head. I love the idea of writing it out, because then it's there.
Yeah.
And we can argue with it out there. We can cross it off. We can burn it. There's a lot of power to that versus the swim that might happen within our head. So I hope this has been helpful for you this evening. And I agree that you have been definitely an inspiration for many this evening. Thank you for all of those who have popped up live and given the questions and have made great comments. I know we kind of put John on the spot a few times, and we appreciate your candor and your ability to answer very personally, as well as maybe as a group, as an industry. So we are so thankful for that. Like you said, the uncover, discover, recover, important steps. Would you like to expand a little bit more on that?
Sure. I have developed this process. It's a life-changing 3-step process called uncover, discover, recover. The first step is in uncovering any difficult situation you might face, regardless of what it is. Once you can identify it, then you can discover whether or not your perception of that situation is the truth, or is there an alternative truth, much like what happened with my mom and I on the train station. The recovery is taking the necessary steps to move forward. And only you can do that. You know what you need. You know you have the strength. Do baby steps, and don't be afraid if you need to ask for help. That could be part of your recovery.
Beautifully stated. Thank you so much for that. I think that there is just real truth in that. I hope you take this, share it with your friends, share on the replay. make sure that people understand that there is help, there is hope, there is a time in your life when the rain can stop. And we hope that that happens for all of you. Grab his book. John, where's the best place for us to pick up a copy of your book?
You can go to Amazon and just type in When the Rain Stops by John Callas. It's got multiple formats, so you can get Kindle, paperback, or hardcover.
Awesome, awesome. Oh, when's the Audible coming out? Come on, man. Are you going to read that? Right, right.
I would also say if after you read the book, if you have questions or you want to talk, by all means, please reach out to me and we'll set up either a Zoom or a phone call and have a little chat. I'm here to help you. If you can't afford money, don't worry about it. I'd rather see your mental health go in the right direction. I'm here for you. You should be there for yourself.
Well said. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for being a part of the Beacon of Light podcast. We hope that this has been hope and light to share out to all of you, because you have that light within yourself and you have that hope. Please open your mouth, open these books, share with other people, and see what their perspective can change. And hopefully the rain can stop for them. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all. Good night.